Welcome to this week's installment in our Football Officials video training series. We're studying the National Federation of High School Rules and five-man mechanics. Technical advisors are Greg Downham, Dax Hill, and George Demetrio. Video technical assistance provided by Jim Woods and Sam Porter. I'm your host, Todd Allen, the Executive Director of the Arkansas Association of High School Officials. Visit our website at aahso.com. We're helping good officials get better. As promised, our second video of the week, this one, the 2014 football rule changes for National Federation of High Schools. We're going to cover them all, and we're going to get started right after this message. This presentation is brought to you by the Reading Study Guide to the NFHS football rules. The Reading Study Guide. When you're through learning, you're through. Let's dive right into this 2014 rule changes. And the first thing we want to talk about is Rule 1.1.7. Under previous rules in the Federation, officials were limited to their authority for the game 30 minutes before kickoff. So 40 minutes before kickoff, we could have both teams involved in a full brawl. And as the rules were written, the officials were basically powerless to do anything about that as far as penalizing the teams. With this change, the states can now adopt rules that extend the game officials' authority to a greater length of time. At whatever time the states wish to have their officials out on the field, they can extend now the game authority for the officials up to that point. In Arkansas, we'll talk about this in our Week 1 Play Bulletin, and you'll look for more information on that. But just check with your local state association and see what your state's doing about Rule 1.1.7, which extends the authority for game officials beyond the previous 30-minute window. Next thing we want to talk about is targeting. Rules 2.20.2 and 9.4.3M, both new rules. A lot's been said about illegal contact and concussions. There's been litigation in the NFL and in the NCAA, and the Federation has been focused on risk minimization. Over the last 40 years, they've led the way in a lot of this, and what we're trying to do is clean up the game and make it as safe as possible, and the game is safer now than it has been in the last 50 years. There's more information on this in a little section that we call State of Football, as the NFHS likes to say. We've produced a video on that. You can check it out on our website. Some good information there. But let's talk about targeting as an act of taking aim and initiating contact to an opponent above the shoulders with the helmet, forearm, hand, fist, elbow, or shoulders. Target may be called for contact against any opponent, including the runner. Some examples. A fist to the head, well, that's just a nasty little uppercut right there. Obviously, we could penalize this and have been penalizing this as a punch thrown. I mean, he's just jacking his jaw. It's like those old Robo games. Robo boxers, I don't know, maybe you're too young to remember that, but anyway, he just knocks his block off there. So certainly that's a foul. Here's an elbow. This is more like an MMA move right here. An elbow to the side of the head. This is a targeting foul because it's contact to an opponent above the shoulders with the forearm. It can be called against anyone, including the runner. Here's an example of what used to be an old clothesline tackle. You see that number 32 there has the ball and his forearms out, and we're just initiating contact here above the shoulders with the ball carrier and using the forearm, and that is a foul for targeting. Now, targeting, although you may have helmets collide in close line play, this in the free blocking zone is not necessarily a targeting foul, so be very, very careful with those types of fouls. There's a difference between two players just bumping heads while they're trying to block, and then a player initiating contact above the shoulders with the helmet. So you got to be careful with those types of plays. Let's talk a little bit about 9.4.3M, illegal personal contact. Again, can't emphasize this enough. We need to understand exactly what is targeting. It's an act of taking aim and initiating contact to an opponent above the shoulders with a helmet, forearm, hand, fist, elbow, or shoulder. Targeting can be called against any opponent, including the runner. The passer in this play is also a defenseless player, and targeting is a 15-yard penalty for personal contact, illegal personal contact, and we'll talk more about the quarterback being a defenseless player and roughing fouls, which now can be enforced as roughing the passer. Illegal kick status. This is in Rule 2.24.9, and this is basically just codifying a rule that the ball, when it's illegally kicked, it retains its original status. Now you see here in this play pick A that the ball carrier has fumbled the ball, and then subsequently a player has kicked the loose ball. The ball remains a fumble, even though it's been kicked. It retains its original status, and that is due to rule change 2.24.9, just making that a little easier to understand. Now let's talk about defenseless player in Rule 2.32.16. This is brand new, and 9.4 .3I3. Kind of hard to follow, but this is a new definition. It's just a defenseless player as being a player who, because of his physical position and focus of concentration, he's especially vulnerable to injury. We'll talk about some examples of players who are, because of their position or focus of concentration, are defenseless. Now, a player who's obviously out of the play is an example. Now here we see at the 50-yard line, B6 clearly way behind the play, and he's chosen not to participate, and so he's considered defenseless. So if you just use that as an excuse to go by and clean his clock, now you have actually initiated contact on a defenseless player, and that's going to be a foul. Another player who, because of his concentration of focus, is defenseless. His position makes him more vulnerable. A kicker, obviously, we can think about that as being a defenseless position. He has to have a reasonable amount of time to regain his balance after he kicks the ball. In play pick B, he's kicked the ball and he's coming back down, but he has not had a reasonable amount of time to regain his balance, so he becomes a defenseless player by this definition. Also, a pass receiver attempting to catch a pass, or a receiver who's clearly just relaxed because the ball he's missed the pass. And he feels like he can no longer catch the pass. We see this on balls thrown down deep along the sideline. The receiver lets up, and then you have a defender coming across the top, and he just whacks him. That's a foul on a defenseless player. And also the ball over the middle of the field that's thrown clearly over the receiver's head, and then he gets hit. That is also a defenseless player, and something that we'll spend some time on in the training videos going over as well. But think about those players being defenseless. Another example, a kick receiver who's attempting to catch or recover the ball is also considered defenseless. A player who's on the ground is considered defenseless. And a runner already in the grasp of an opponent whose forward progress has been stopped. An important element, his forward progress has been stopped. If he's still churning up yardage and still moving the ball, then obviously his forward progress has not been stopped, so he would not be considered a defenseless player. Two elements there, the runner in the grasp of an opponent and forward progress has been stopped, is also considered defenseless. Let's talk about the untimed down rule 3.3.3, 3.3.4. Basically, this rule just says that for us to extend the play, the foul has to occur during a down in which time expires, and then the penalty has to be accepted. In this play, Team A commits a live ball foul and time for the period expires during the down. If the penalty is accepted, the period is extended for one untimed down. Same holds true for a Team B foul. A live ball foul and time for the period expires during the down. If the penalty is accepted, the period is extended for one untimed down. Another big change this year, and again, this is the committee's continuing focus on safety. We're going to try to slow down the free kicks, and this is just after the ready for play has been signaled and until the ball is kicked. For a free kick, Team K must have at least 4 players on either side of the kicker, as shown in this mechanicogram here. K is guilty of a dead ball foul because if you look there to the left of the kicker, we only have 3 players on that side. The important part of this is, guys, we're going to have to do an excellent job of being preventive officials. Okay, we're going to have to communicate very well in the preseason with the teams on this rule change. And then if you get to go out and work a benefit game or a preseason scrimmage, you want to really coach them up, the coaches, on this rule change. And then as they allow yourself a little more time early on to get these players out on the field before we blow the ready for play whistle, referees, you're going to have to do a good job of communicating with your officials that are up the field, because they need to get the formation legal before they back out and let you blow the ready for play whistle. We do not want a foul here. What we want to do is be great dead ball officials, preventive officiate, make sure that we communicate with this rule to the teams, and then we remind them and get them all set up before we blow the ready for play. We don't need to unnecessarily delay the game. We've got to keep the game moving, but we don't want this foul called. We just want them to get the play legal, but this is a dead ball foul. On a free kick, from the time the ready for play whistles is signaled until the ball is kicked, no K player other than the kicker may be more than 5 yards from his free kick line. The formation in this mechanicogram here becomes legal when the ball has been declared ready for play. We've got to have everybody inside that 5-yard belt. What exactly is inside the 5-yard belt? It's all of your feet have to be inside the lines. If you're on the line, it's a foul. If you're beyond the line, it's a foul. Look at these players, K3, K4, K5, and K6. All of these players are more than 5 yards from the free kick line. This is a dead ball foul for an illegal formation, and we would penalize it as a dead ball foul, 5 yards. Here is a change in Rule 8.5.1b. This is a new rule on force, and basically this just says if K1 blocks R2 into the ball, the accidental touching of the loose ball by a player who's been blocked into the ball by his opponent is ignored, and it does not constitute a new force. So the result of this play is a touchback. Philosophically, though, how do we approach this? We want to think about this as a player being actively blocking. And what we mean by actively blocking is he's got to be digging in, they've got to be engaged, and he has to be working this block when this takes place, this accidental touching. If he's actively blocking and getting moved around the field by the team K player, and then he accidentally touches the ball, then that is ignored. Passive blocking. If he's just kind of hanging around, he's just kind of running with the player, not really blocking him, they're not actively engaged, he's just passively blocking, and the ball hits him, this is a new force. He does not get the benefit of this new rule because he hasn't actually been blocked into the ball. He's just kind of been there and the ball has hit him. So there is a big difference. And think about active and passive blocking. You got to really be focused on these and concentrate. Make sure you get these plays right. But it warrants studying and further discussion with your crew in pregame about active and passive blocking. Make sure you also utilize multiple angles. There's 5 of us out there, and we're trying to cover 22 guys that are spread out all over the field. You've heard me talk about this in previous videos if you're a long-time listener. Free kicks and scrimmage kicks, but free kicks especially, are incredibly difficult to officiate with 5 players. We've got to make sure we do an excellent job in the pregame of covering exactly who's looking at who, so we don't end up with 5 guys looking at the ball. We've got to cover all 22 players on the field, and then we also have to understand the new rule on 8.5.1b for force, and then philosophically we need to be able to approach that with active and passive blocking and define those and clearly identify them when they happen in the game. Last one, involving roughing the passer, Rule 9.4.4. No defensive player may charge into or commit any illegal personal contact foul listed in Rule 9.4.3 against the passer who's standing still or fading back. There's a critical element right there. If he's standing still or fading back, then he is protected because he's considered out of the play. So he's a passive player, out of the play. You know, he's passed the ball, he's fading back, or he's standing still, and then there's an illegal contact foul against him, and then this becomes a tack-on foul for roughing the passer. Here you see in this pictogram, the defensive player grabs him by the face mask. Now, under the old rule, this would just be a tack-on to a running play. If on this passing play, we'd have to enforce this from the previous spot. So let's just say Team A snaps the ball at the 50-yard line, and then the receiver catches the ball 15 yards down the field and then runs for another 10 yards. Now we've got a 25-yard gain. Under this new rule, we can tack this foul on half the distance to the goal, and it's an automatic first down. Under the old rule, we'd have to go back to the 50-yard line and put the ball at the 35, 1st and 10. So you can see this is really going to punish the defense even more. This is a great rule change, and it's going to continue to provide protection to our quarterbacks who are in a very vulnerable position on the field, and so they deserve special consideration. And this is, again, the committee's continuing focus on safety of our student athletes. So another great rule change we need to talk about in our pregame and make sure that we get these plays right involving roughing the passer. That's going to do it for this week in our 2014 New Rules video. Hope you found something interesting here and hope you're into those books, studying and getting ready for the 2014 season. If you have a question or a play that you think others might benefit from watching in this video series, you can email that to me at toddallen65@mac.com. We'd also like to hear how maybe these videos are helping your association, your study group, or even your crew work to become better officials. We might even share your letter on the air in future episodes that we call In the Bag. For Greg Downham, Dax Hill, Kirk Wisniewski, and everyone on staff here at the AAHSO, thanks for tuning in. We hope to see you on the field soon.